call this,
Do you want me to share the website?
yes, please.
All right, perfect. Okay. Starting over now. All right, webinar started.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:02 on Monday, November 21st, 2022. And we will begin with consent agenda items. The consent agenda contains minutes from the November 7th, 2022 school board meeting, general fund vouchers and purchasing card transactions, and several professional, co-curricular, and administrative staffing recommendations as listed on the agenda. I think I would move to accept the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That takes us to public comments. Do we have anything, Angie?
I have not received anything.
Okay, would you like to do your thing?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
Nice pen, Tom.
While she's waiting, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we normally take, like who's here or not? Isn't it
Only in closed session.
only for the closed?
Only
is that
closed
it?
session.
Okay.
Roll call.
Thanks, Kate.
All right. So if anyone would like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the Q&A, we would ask that you type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you've discussed this item prior to the meeting with either a district administrator or President Howery. After submitting the information, I would transfer you over to speak to the board. Thank you.
And I'll do this little read. In accordance with School Board Policy 167.3, the McFarland School Board welcomes public comment during regular meetings. The board will accept public comments via individuals who are physically present at the meeting, who are participating in the board meeting virtually, or who have sent an email to the board president or superintendent in advance of the meeting. Please note the following. Participants are required to register their intention to participate in the noticed public comment portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting, and shall begin their comments by stating their name, address, and group affiliation, if and when appropriate. Participants shall address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. The board members will not directly respond to comments and may only take action on topics that are on the published agenda. Participants are asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes in duration. Written comments will have a word limit of 250 words. The portion of the meeting for public comments is limited to 60 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. And lastly, participants shall direct all comments to the board and observe reasonable decorum. Anything happening?
We have not had anyone
It
register.
appears as though we have no public comments this morning, so we'll move along to the McFarland High School student report.
All right.
Hello, Joey.
Hello. All right, let me just get the presentation up here. Okie dokie. So not a whole lot going on. Things are settling down a little bit because the fall break coming up. But some things. On November 15th, the teacher study group had their second meeting. So they continue their meetings by reading excerpts from the text Humble Inquiry, The Gentle Art of Asking Instead of Telling by Edgar H. Schein. And then they will continue to learn as a group by reading excerpts from The Collective Equity, A Movement for Creating Communities Where We All Can Breathe by Nicole Lott and Sonja Hollins-Alexander. So that's very exciting. Reality Zone also took place on November 14th. So during this experience, students were able to learn about financial responsibility and the reality of adult life. So thanks to all the volunteers who helped out with this event and made it possible. Hope Squad, over the past month, the MHS, the McFarland High School Hope Squad, has been interviewing nominated students to be members of the Hope Squad in the future. The MHS Hope Squad has also continued their mission of supporting mental health and has created an outlet for students in need of support to reach out to members via district emails. So that's really exciting. Hoping to get some new members and some new ideas in there. MHS sports. So winter sports have begun at MHS. This includes girls basketball, boys wrestling, boys basketball, boys and girls hockey, and boys swimming. Some have already begun the season. In their season opener, junior Tegan Mullaney from the girls basketball team program has hit 1,000 career points. So congrats to Tegan, because that's super impressive. United Against Hate also held a fundraiser where they collaborated with Culver's and raised over $270 to continue their mission dedicated to equity. So with this money, they'll likely be attending a trip to the Wisconsin Capitol on December 13th to meet with legislation, and hopefully be attending an event in Milwaukee with the Wisconsin State School Board. So that's super, super awesome. BSU and PCU also went on a field trip. So the MHS Black Student Union took a trip with the IMMS People of Color Union to go see Wakanda Forever in theaters. Students enjoyed the movie and engaged in discussion about the film's significance, message, and creation of being a Black film created by Black filmmakers. So that was super awesome. And that's about all we have. So yeah, thanks and have an amazing fall.
That's awesome.
Are there any questions?
I don't think we have any questions.
Just a comment.
Go ahead, Tom.
It's amazing all that you do and all the clubs that are engaging here in the community at the high school.
It's awesome. We have super active clubs here.
It's great.
Have you ever thought of, you had that fundraiser
Yes.
where you got $270. Have you ever considered contacting members of the community ahead of that and ask them for a matching donation? Ahead of time?
I think that's something we've thought about. As a member of United Against Hate, I think I can say that we just kind of came up with the best fundraiser that would make a good portion of the money we need to keep doing events. But definitely in the future, if we're looking to do some more stuff within the community, that would definitely be a good idea. So,
For sure. If nobody's got anything else, I can just tell you that my wife has watched a few of these school board meetings, and she thinks you're the best part of the whole meeting. It's true. She may be right.
awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Joey.
Okay, informational items. Equity update.
Excellent. I would invite my esteemed colleague, Melissa Full, to please approach the bench. Share a little bit. So, Melissa and I were just talking about the importance of sharing with you and then subsequent to our meeting, some updates with the community on some of the work that we've been doing related to equity. One of the things that we've acknowledged, and particularly in a communication last June, is that's not something we've done very good job of, is just sharing some of the things that we're doing. So know that we picked 9 things to share with you that we think are some good updates since our update in June, which, there's not been a ton of time, but we're proud of some of the work that we're doing. But know that we want to acknowledge from the outset we have a lot of additional work to do. And through the strategic planning process, it was very clear that a commitment to this work is essential for our district to make sure that all of our kids excel and grow and learn. So with that, I'm going to, I know I sent this to you in the minutes, but I'm just for your quick reference, I'm just going to hand this out to you. And Melissa and I are going to kind of tag team it. What I'd ask is that if you have questions, if you could save them till the end, we'll probably take 10 to 15 minutes just to give you the information. But then when we are done, then maybe it's possible that we could answer one of your questions by the time that we're finished, and then we'll entertain questions afterwards. So some things that we really want to acknowledge from the outset is that we have some principles that really guide this work. And these are things that really shape all of our decision-making. Part of it is we really accept an institutional responsibility for diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And partly that has been directed by you as a school board in terms of the resolutions that have been passed, the inclusive curriculum statement, and of course, the anti-racist resolution. And, you know, we've also had the LGBTQIA resolution as well. But with that work, we need to examine our system's impact on families and students. So that's one of the things that we need to do is to look at how the things that we're doing affect, and do they affect certain groups more than others, and use that to guide our decision making. That's the lens that we kind of look at through all of our work. And listen and believe students and families with their experience, regardless of what that might be, whether it's related to socioeconomic status or race, disability, et cetera. That's really important. And part of that involves looking at data and really analyzing the data we have available to us. You know, we can only break it down by the demographic data that we have available, but using that to guide our understanding about how our system is impacting people. The third one is the one that I always need to remind myself, is to stay focused and be strategic, because it's overwhelming. There's so many things you want to do. But in this work, even with great intentions, your impact may actually have the opposite opposite from what you intend if you move too quickly and aren't thoughtful in your movement. So we want to move together and address larger systems that have greater impact. So some highlighted updates since June, and in your packet you will see the previous communications we've sent to families and to the board, the previous board, both June of last year and then June of this past year and then June of a year and a half ago. But I'm going to focus on a few, and then Melissa's going to focus on some as well. The first thing I want to talk about is just some of the updates on our district equity leadership and coordination. You know, we created these 2-year leadership positions, and they were meant to really provide more coordination over work that we were either already doing or starting to do. We were finding that in order to move forward, we needed at least to have a couple of people designated to lead this work and do the coordination role. So, of course, we had an administrative role that was an addendum to a contract for an equity coordinator, and then a K-5, and then a 6-12 teacher leader that works directly with the staff. And when Ann Nichols, as the equity coordinator, resigned, that's a time when Melissa and I assumed that role, and that's why we're speaking to you today. It is a role that we have taken periodically over the last couple years during times of need, and we are in the process, and we'll be working with you to explore future leadership for this work, whatever form that might be, whether it's a separate position or a study to look at what's needed, or consultants, et cetera. That's a big step for us because there's lots of important work to do. The second thing that we really want to highlight is student voice and leadership. And that is something that, as you just saw with Connect, is something that to be really proud of. We have a couple things that have changed in recent years. Is Natural Circles of Support provides mentoring circles for our African American students, and that started at the high school, moved down to the middle school, and most recently has been at Wabisa as well. And so that's a significant affinity group, is kind of the phrase that's used, support for students. But also we have several groups that are really involved in action. And, you know, I think Joey represents it well, some of the things that are going on. But, for example, last year we added the People of Color Union at Indian Mound. And you can see in this list several groups that are involved in this leadership work. And we have been meeting with both the high school administration and myself and Melissa and Natural Circles of Support in their partnership has been meeting with students periodically. And we're looking to expand that into really helping those, what we're terming loosely, social justice groups, be more effective leaders in a school, and certainly they're helping us grow. The other thing that we're doing, which is a fairly recent development, is renewing the work that we have done in the past with two individuals, Percy Brown Jr. and Dr. Rainey Briggs. They work in schools, and they also have a consultancy outside of that work. And we've been partnering with them in their consultant role regarding addressing hate speech. So this was something that, emerged over our crisis earlier in the year. And one of the things we realized was we actually had a well-structured presentation that Percy Brown had done for our students and staff several years ago. But for some reason, we just didn't sustain that. So now we have new kids and a lot of new staff. And so, and this is something we're guilty of, and not anymore. We're going to make sure we sustain that's good work. So we've brought Percy and Rainey back in. They've met with our students. They've met with our high school staff. They're going to be presenting to students coming up, as well as middle school students, so middle and high school students, about hate speech. Because one of the things that we are hearing more and more is our kids are saying they're hearing slurs being used on a regular basis throughout their school day. And that's just not acceptable. And so we're working with the students and the staff to make sure that students are coming forward, and then we're creating a culture where those things are less likely to happen, and that we're addressing them consistently from an administrative level.
Is staff cognizant that it's as rampant as it seems to be?
Very much, very much. And that's part of the training that they do. They actually share what the feedback from the students. And now I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, who's going to talk about the next few items.
Thanks, Erin. Equity leadership training has been supported with our work from Natural Circles of Support. They have held 2 seminars so far this year. Each one was attended by staff across K-12 from the district, over 20 staff at each one, including administrators. And the topics of those trainings have been, the goals of those trainings have been learning, certainly, but really leadership development for our staff so that they can take on the work, beyond the life of the grant, and that they're able to continue being leaders. We also bring the student voice and experience, so what circles are hearing through their affinity groups and circles in schools, they bring that to the staff at those meetings so that we're able to reflect and plan forward. And it's also an opportunity for staff to experience what a circle feels and looks like, again, so that they can perhaps have leadership role and continue those beyond our work with Natural Circles of Support. We're looking forward to one. The most recent one was just a few weeks ago on November 11th, and then we're looking forward to a 3rd seminar in February of this year. On the back side of the page, continuing with our professional development through the Center of Culturally and Linguistically Responsive Teaching and Learning. That's Dr. Shiraki Holly's organization. As you know, we did a book study of Dr. Holly's book last year, Full Staff K-12. This year, the work has evolved into a binder study for 3 of our schools. And at CEPS, they're taking a slightly different approach, really being responsive of the other literacy professional development they have going on. They're kind of switching the 2 years and doing cultural behavior tutorials this year, and they'll do the binder study next year, while the rest of the district kind of flip-flops roles. The great thing about that work is that it really focuses on culture and aspects of culture, which allows us to get at things like eye contact, proximity, verbal overlap. And the idea is that some students are really more comfortable, for example, in an environment that has lots of noise and lots of voices overlapping each other. Some students are more comfortable in an environment that's turn-taking, raising your hands, one speaker at a time. That is natural and varies based on lots of aspects of culture. Age might be one of the aspects of culture that makes it a little bit different. Certainly, oh my goodness. Age is the one that I always think of the most because it is the most different between us and our students. But having those different cultural behaviors in mind as we plan lessons, the idea is that students have the opportunity for both. So some students, again, might feel more comfortable in a turn-taking environment, but it's really healthy for them to learn what it feels like and how to interact appropriately in an environment with verbal overlap and vice versa. So we're trying to make sure students have opportunities in both forms. Now, that is what you've heard about before. Perhaps what's new is we have approximately 20 staff members working in coaching cadres right now, which means they are working with people directly from the Center of Culturally and Linguistically Responsive Teaching and Learning, and they submit a lesson plan, a sketch lesson plan ahead of time, and have someone come observe them in the classroom and then meet them directly, maybe directly, but the same day after that observation to get direct feedback on how they can continue to improve the way that they're implementing the strategies. That is about 20 staff members this year. We're hoping to expand and continue that over the next 2 years so that all of the staff have an opportunity to go through that process and get feedback to continue to improve. The last one that I'm going to chat about for right now, actually Joey already took care of it, so it'll be shorter. But we have the Welcoming Student Voices Teacher Study Group. Typically in our history, teacher study groups, they've been going on for over a decade in McFarland, but until this fall, they've always exclusively involved teachers. This is our first teacher study group that has students as an active and regular part of those conversations, and they are really excited and they're hoping to leave the year with tangible plans to improve the professional practice for teachers and the student experience in all of our schools. So we're really thankful to the staff members who took the leadership role to organize and facilitate that, and all of the students who are participating and learning along with us.
Excellent. Number 7, parent equity leadership. You've heard for several years now talk about the formation of a parent equity council. And where we're at right now in that process, well, let me just explain a little bit about what that group could be, is the idea of having parents that represent our traditionally marginalized populations and each level coming together to talk about their experience and help guide our equity work, because often kids will share things with families that they won't share directly with us. Or other families will share things with other families that they won't necessarily share with us. Trying to bridge that gap and providing some insights. And part of what we've done so far is done some investigation a little bit about what some other districts are doing, and quickly found that was helpful in the sense of giving us some direction, but that the needs of this district are unique. Then what ended up happening was the strategic planning process kind of took over that work, and I found that I was going to be competing for some of the same people's attention with the strategic planning process, and I wanted to let that play out. Now we're at the process, and actually it was somebody in this, a community member involved in strategic planning that came to me after one of the sessions and had a great idea, which is where we're moving forward now. I'm gonna have a planning session sometime in December, I haven't determined the exact date, with parents and guardians of students that are involved in these social justice clubs. And the purpose of this meeting will be a real planning session. What could a parent equity council look like? What would be their role? What would they do? And that came forward from a community member who just shared, you know, you're gonna have trouble getting people in that haven't been involved before. So why don't you meet with the people whose kids are very involved in this work first, just to get some ideas, and then decide how to best, you know, involve other families. So that's been a new development, and we'll be moving forward with that. And Melissa's going to be talking about inclusive curriculum.
This one was difficult to summarize because it is hard for me to say, well, this is something that's specifically an equity move compared to this is something that's just always something that we do. Because equity is a lens that we bring to all of the choices that we make and all of the decisions that we have. A few things that seemed relevant to point out here, the materials reconsideration process that we presented to the board last spring, that process is grounded in equity. That process is really grounded in wanting diverse choices and diverse materials for our students to use in the classroom. The other part is, as far as selecting materials go, we've had teachers say, I am unsure if this is okay or not okay, as far as a resource that I might use or a topic that I might address in my class, especially when they're sensitive topics. And we have developed a supplementary resources flowchart that really guides teachers through, well, are you talking about this, then this? Are you going to include this topic? Well, consider these questions. That is a resource that is borrowed and adapted from work in Sun Prairie and Wanakee, and we've made it work for our purposes and included our school policies and procedures. That's not something we've shared widely with the district yet, but it's really the A Council knows about it, our instructional coaches and coordinators know about it, so we're really sharing it right now kind of as an as-needed resource. The conversations that I've had sharing that with teachers have been really amazing to learn more about the work that teachers are already doing, and the feedback I've gotten so far is this will be really helpful because it'll make me feel like I'm confident with the choices that I'm making and I've really thought through my decisions well, and I'm prepared to do this well because it's important and it's important for my students. One piece that I'd like to highlight that came out of that, which is relevant to the resolution the board passed, is in our U.S. history curriculum, they have, as a natural part of all of their units, asking the question, whose voices are not represented here? That's a question they regularly ask their students regularly throughout all of their units. And then in the units, they not only present maybe what's the majority history, but they always include, as in each unit, another perspective. So the example that was shared with me just last week was the Roaring 20s. The Roaring 20s weren't roaring for everyone, and so they include in that unit talking about the Great Migration of African Americans from the South to the North at that same time, which led to both the genius and joy of the Harlem Renaissance, but also things like the Tulsa Massacre at that same time. So saying the Roaring 20s, what's the experience like for everyone, and who's missing from this kind of stereotypical representation of the Roaring 20s that have been in our textbooks traditionally. That's one example of many across the district, so we could write pages and paragraphs about inclusive curriculum, but that's one specific one that was shared with me recently. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron for the last topic.
Yes. And some of that too, just to highlight, it's kind of old news now, but it's important news to acknowledge that, just a reminder, our curriculum review process includes feedback from students on the representation in the curriculum. So math is this year, right?
Starting up year 0 this year, and we'll be
Okay.
surveying students this year about if they feel represented in our math curriculum, which is a little bit different than the sort of, it's different than asking, do you feel represented in your social studies and English curriculum? But in the math standards that we get from DPI, there is a shift and a big focus on identity, and students feeling like their identity is represented in the math that they do. Now, how that might look in math could be valuing different ways of solving problems. So not feeling like there's a standard algorithm, but there are multiple ways to approach problems and problem solving. But it also involves students feeling like, do I feel like I can be successful in mathematics? Do I feel like people like me, however you define people like me, can be successful and have careers and go forward and be mathematicians? So a little bit different, we've already surveyed students about social studies and ELA. The math were really interesting to hear what students tell us, because every time we ask them, they give us really good feedback.
And lastly, village partnerships. So one of the things that that we've started and started, actually before I actually began in this role, was partnering with the village on some of the equity work that the village is doing. So I meet regularly with Stephanie Miller. But in addition to that, a few of us have an idea for sort of a McFarland Equity Council of sorts that would have representation from these different groups that are all committed to the same work. McFarland Equity Project, the village, the district, that we would meet on a regular basis, share what we're doing, collaborate on different things. If you've taken the time to look at the village of McFarland's Equity Action Plan, the overlap with the district, it's actually in every single goal area. Things like getting speakers coming in or celebrating different events. And so instead of duplicating our efforts, we want to collaborate on that. So excited to have that moving forward. So that's some of the highlights we wanted to share, but you've been very patient and great listeners, so we welcome your questions.
I have a couple.
Yes.
First, great update. That's
totally a move in the right direction. Like you said, we have not been great about it in the past, and that's really exciting to learn about that stuff. So thank you for that. Second, the culturally and linguistically responsive training, is there an opportunity for the board to do some of that? Or is there a way that we could learn some of that?
Yeah,
Didn't mean to stump you.
No, it's like we're already, it almost have to be separate, I think, at this point, because so much is, it's not a great
yes,
time to start
yes,
up, right? If you
right.
jumped into a session now, you would be confused. And
Absolutely.
they'd be talking a language you don't understand. So it's possible we could do something
Mm-hmm.
separately. Certainly, you are welcome to a copy of the book, which I think some people have.
Oh, do you? Yeah, I would love to borrow
If
it.
you- Yeah,
Yeah.
I have copies that I can get to you.
yeah, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
But I think we could probably do something separate for the board, maybe a work session or something, that I think would
Yeah.
help. I think, for example, the way that Melissa explained it to you, I could just tell, and I could kind of, just reading your reactions, provided a little bit more context about what it is and what we're talking about, because often in this work, equity gets equated with race. Culture gets equated with race. And when we talk about this work, that's not the only lens that we're looking at. And so I think the examples you provided were very helpful and would be helpful for the board to have some more examples.
Yeah.
I think the other kind of why we didn't have an answer ready to go is the binder study is really focused on practical classroom instruction strategies. And so that's not the context that you're working in, and not that it would be that confusing perhaps or jarring experience to jump into binder study 4 of 5 at this point. But work session or reading the book is much more philosophical and gets to the grounding and the why of the work, so that's another good place to start.
It is.
And that's really just what I meant. I mean, it doesn't have
And
to
it
be
might
something
actually-
super organized. I just wanted a place to start. So thank you.
And there might
That's helpful.
actually be a couple chapters too that we would want to even highlight.
I got a handout in mind.
Yep, yeah,
I like
that we
handouts.
could. The Cliff Notes, right?
That's right. And then the other thing that I had a question about, that flow chart that you were referencing, is that something the board could see?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I will, it is a lot of text. I will tell you,
Be
it's a
ready.
lot of text.
That's fine. That's great. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question I was going to ask. How many student and teachers are in this study group?
The teacher study group,
Yeah,
there
well, the
are,
student teachers study group.
yes, in that welcoming student voices, there are 37 who had signed up. And then in addition to those 37, there are administrators and students. So it's a large group. Most of our teacher study groups are 12 to 15 teachers.
Oh, okay.
Like a typical teacher study group
Okay, yeah,
is
yeah,
about
yeah.
15
Yeah.
people is more average. This one's 37, plus the teachers, plus administrators, plus
Plus
students.
How many students would you?
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm not sure.
I feel like 20, but I know I had it somewhere.
Okay,
Doesn't need to be
But
exact.
more than
I'm
20,
curious.
more than 20.
okay. And is it pretty representative of our student population? And what I was going to ask is, I mean, I think there is always a concern. This is, it happened while we were growing up, each of us the same thing, and it certainly happened when I was teaching. Often it was the same kids. And are we proactively going to kids and saying, I would really like to have you get involved? Are we doing that? 'Cause
Yes.
I think that's so important to try to give these people that opportunity to get involved and to just kind of open their eyes, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I would say, in addition to us going to students, because the numbers of that many students giving up their own time
Yes, yeah.
is amazing, students are going to students. So
Okay.
students that are in it saying, you should go do this too.
Yeah.
So the way that we have these small groups that have staff from across in different roles, different parts of the district, and then 1 to 2 students, and we're calling them families. So each of these small groups then has representation from students. And then what ends up happening is they discuss the topic. And then at the end, it breaks up. So students go with students and staff go into building level teams to do some action planning based on what they learned
Yeah, so,
on that day. So I was really surprised at the representation.
Good.
There was a few people I expected
Yeah.
to see there, and they were there, and, 3 times more.
And as Erin was sharing, I think an important group that I didn't mention out loud is our partners at NCOS. Natural Circles of Support are a part of that group too.
Yes.
And their leadership has been really helpful in organizing, planning, and supporting students while they're there.
yeah,
Oh.
'cause I think it can play such an important role for when we're talking about some of these, the hate speech and slurs or whatnot, and if the fact you said it's somewhat rampant, you were talking about the middle school, but I think, again, so much of it is just, we need to engage voices. We need to kind of get them to talk with each other, and I think it's such an important way to do that, so, anyway.
I would say I just want to acknowledge Wendy Pliska and Marla Connor for their leadership,
Oh, yeah.
along with Natural Circles of Support. Those 3 groups have been working, but what's really neat about it, and they don't really promote this that much, but they meet with the students to plan each session. So students are actually leading and designing it.
Cool.
And then the teachers kind of show up and receive what the advisors have worked with the students to.
Can I put in one plug for the teachers? I think they're probably giving up their time as well.
Oh, yeah.
As the students. It's
Yeah.
not just the students giving up the time, but these staff members as well.
Mhm.
I have one thing, and I really want to compliment you, Melissa, just because, on the inclusive curriculum, and as a social studies teacher, I'm going like, oh boy, here we go. I mean, social studies, U.S. history, whatever, it's world history, same thing. And any kind of the social studies is going to be involved with this work. And obviously, English, language arts. But you explained, because it seems to me you can do, and maybe, some oddball things, as you say, you get these probably ideas from the students themselves, but in math and in science and stuff like that, whether it just be a poster on the wall and having people who you go, like, they're famous, yeah, I mean, why not? We need to get kids to be able to dream and identify, and that's such an important role. So just thank you that we're working on that. And then lastly, for you, hooray for collaboration with the village. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic. And I want to thank you both. So,
Thank you. They've been very responsive. And
yeah.
it's good.
Well, we have too,
Yep.
which is we're working together. That's what it should be.
Is there, have you guys thought about doing any more overlap between the social justice clubs? Like, I know people of color and the Black Student Union went to the movie together. But it seems
point.
to me like having the older kids spend time with the younger kids at the middle school is a great opportunity.
It is.
And it seems like there's quite a few social justice clubs here at the high school. Wondering, have we put any thought into maybe some more at the middle school, or do you feel like people of color kind of covers a lot of those groups?
Well, they have, the 3 that I can think of at the middle school, the GSA, they also have a GSA that collaborates
they
with the
do?
high school
Okay.
GSA, the People of Color Union, and then similar to what the high school has a group called Unified that focuses on students with disabilities. And the middle school actually predates Unified at the high school, has had something called Alliance of Allies, which is about students with and without disabilities engaging in activities together. So I would say those are the 3. What they don't have is, they don't have a Black student union specifically. They don't have Multicultural Club, they don't have United Against Hate, and they don't have Girl Up. Those are currently high school groups, although the middle school had a Girl Up Club. It's just, those students came to the high school. And there weren't any more continuing. But I love that collaboration across.
I think it was neat to see the groups
Yeah.
together, and it gives those younger kids people to look up to and know
Yes.
what they're doing in the high school. How do
Yes.
we do
a
this
great
in the
idea.
middle school, and how do we carry it on to high school? So.
Yeah.
And that's something that's mentioned in the board resolution, and so
It
we've
is.
tried to encourage that as much as possible. A lot of times scheduling gets in the way, but it is something that we're hoping to do more of.
Okay.
Yeah, the resolution is specific to the BSU, which you just saw. But expanding it to other, that's a great idea.
I think the information you both shared has been invaluable. It's good to know what's happening here in the district. So we know, and then we can share what we know with others, especially if they start asking questions. So, hats off to you guys. Great report. But I do have some questions also.
All right.
Maybe you can't answer this. I know we received a $1 million grant. Do we know what the balance of that grant is right now? Because I know
don't
it's a
off the top of my
5-year.
head. That's more of a Melissa thing.
Are we in year 2 now or year 1 still?
We're in year 2.
2, okay.
Yep. And you will be, and we should have mentioned this at the outset, I should have mentioned this outset. You will be getting a full report, status report on the grant in January.
Okay.
So
good.
that's when they're scheduled to come forward. We were here this summer at some point. I don't remember what month it was. But certainly a significant portion of the grant has been spent. It is kind of a grant that is monetarily designed to be heavy on the front end.
Yes.
And then, so that we start to, kind of the district starts to, you build leadership capacity that we can then carry forward is the idea for the model. So things that have been going on, like the seminars that have been occurring, staff are compensated for their time because they're giving up their work time to attend. As an example, food is provided. There's things like that that have been an increased cost this year. So we certainly value staff's time and don't want to expect them to volunteer and give up their own time to lead this really challenging, complex work.
And I think those things lead to success. We can lay the table like that.
Yeah, good question.
You indicated that, well, I don't have to know what the budget is since you're coming in January. Percy and Rain are going to be presenting to the high school and the middle school coming up.
Yes,
Can board members attend
definitely.
those sessions?
Yeah, definitely.
okay.
I think the exact timing and things are almost 100%
Okay.
understood, but they've changed. Originally, they were actually going to be presenting this week. And
Oh.
then Mr. Finstead brought it forward to the high school building leadership team, and they had a great conversation. 2 things came out of that. One was, just before a short week, you're probably going to lose some of your impact, right? Because I think we felt a sense of urgency to get this moving. The second thing was wanting to provide a little bit more professional development for staff before. Here's what we're going to be sharing with the students. Here's a lesson for you to do before they come. Here's a lesson for you to do after they come, so that the staff are actually more prepared instead of just students go to the PAC, hear this, and then leave. It's going to actually, we're trying to get a little more impact from it, but it means delaying this. But I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but I will get those to you.
But I think the trade-off is there, the way you're explaining it.
And that goes to that slow and methodical
Yeah.
thing you were saying before.
And then you're talking about hate speech. Just a reminder, let's not forget the bus drivers, because a lot of things happen on the buses that we may not be aware of, but we are aware of some of it.
Good reminder.
And then, when I joined the board, you were talking about the binder study. And I'm under the old mindset, we do the binders, we leave them on the shelf. So I appreciate you incorporating sort of that definition tonight. So I appreciate the way you're differentiating the PD from SEPs to the rest of the district, because different campuses have different immediate needs. So that's good to see. And then inclusion curriculum, I did put in here, let's not reinvent the wheel. Can we partner with another school, another district that has already gone beyond where we are? But then you answered that question. You gave some examples of what we're doing right here now. So I appreciated that also. I thought it was an awesome report.
Thank you. And I think in some ways we are out in front on a few things. I feel, at least given the request for information that we're receiving from our colleagues about using slurs in text, that's something that we're out in front in talking about, how we handle text that has racial slurs in them and providing that information to our staff. There's some things like that I think people are asking and learning from us about our experiences. So it's very collaborative in the area. very fortunate.
Great.
Can I have just a few seconds?
Yes, of
Before you
course.
go on?
Yes.
I actually struggled a little bit today whether to say anything, but I think I convinced myself it was appropriate,
Okay.
and it is topical.
Quite a
Given the events in Colorado Springs just a few days ago, it's plain to see that there's very much more work to do, in terms of equity. We mourn another senseless act of violence against the LGBTQ plus community, and from the way I understand it, if not for the heroic act of a customer, it would have been much, much worse. A customer restrained the shooter. So, I think the least that we can do is vow that we won't stop until everyone is safe.
Well said.
Yep,
That's it.
That is
you.
well said.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks.
School climate.
It's hard to follow such
It is.
powerful words. I mean, this is just so boring now. I'm gonna sit up straight for the camera.
Can we scoot out?
Yeah, it's kind of inhaling these days, I tell you. So I just wanted to provide an update for you on where we're at with school climate surveys. And I've shared this information in a few places around the district, including with the administrative team. And just, it's more informational for you that the plan is to move forward with a March, April school climate survey for staff and families, and using school perceptions. And I'll talk a little bit about the choice to use a third party to do the survey. In terms of a student survey, we're still kind of evaluating that in terms of what's the best format. There's a concern about making sure that the student survey is in language that's easily understood by students, so that all of them have the same common understanding about what they're answering, and that it gets to kind of alignment with our school improvement goals. So we may end up using school perceptions for that, but in talking with the administrative team, we wanted to just slow that one down a little bit. Partly, other districts have also shared their thoughts that of the school perception surveys that they've used, the student one is the one that they have the most questions about. But, moving forward with this survey, there's a few reasons I really think I just want you to understand the rationale for using a third party for the survey, because certainly we could design our own survey and run it and analyze it on our own. We are paying for a service for school perceptions, much as we do for the staff exit surveys. And there's a few reasons for it. The first one, though, is the idea of guaranteed anonymity. By having a third party, the information goes directly to the third party, and it just provides that sense of confidentiality and reassurance that no matter how many times we tell staff, we're not tracking your email on this, wouldn't even know how to figure this out if we were that sinister. It's still, they're sharing some things that are hard to share sometimes, and we want people to speak their truth. It doesn't help us if people are cautious about what they say. So by using a third party, hopefully we're increasing that both for families and for staff. School perceptions, they're trained on this work. That's their expertise, so hopefully that reduces bias in questions, because that's something that I'm not trained on, how to make an unbiased survey question. So that's important. They are customizable, so that we could add a question that maybe we feel like aligns with our strategic plan or goals different. You can filter them by demographic information, which will help us with the last presentation, so that we can look and just see if some populations are impacted differently in terms of, say, their sense of belonging in our school. Comparable to other districts, which can provide a little context, although that doesn't, I don't want anybody to get the impression that we would look at it and go, oh, we're higher than other districts, so that means we don't need to worry about it. That's certainly not the case, but it provides at least, helps you know how we compare in terms of relative strengths and needs. It also, school perceptions will provide reminders to people who haven't taken the survey that they need to take the survey. That's something they do as part of that service, typically 15 minutes or less. They will also analyze the results and produce reports as part of the survey fee. And we can also, by using a consistent survey, we can look for trends over time and use that information to set goals. So you've heard Tom and I kind of, I think somewhat fondly, reminisce about the Carey days of the Carey survey. But that's really, it provided a really rich place for us to use for goal setting. When, you know, this many students say they feel connected with a teacher, that's a great metric to look at. And the same with families and staff. One of the things I wanted to just share is that, you know, we will need to make sure with the family survey that we include as many voices as possible. That's always the challenge. Know that we're committed to that, and we'll do what we can to make that happen. We're going to need to probably prioritize questions so that the survey is manageable, because often we want to ask everything when you could ask half of the questions and actually get a higher response rate. So that's always a dance. Staff morale is a key thing that we often talk about. And I know it's very important to the board and certainly important to me. And by having this consistent data point, it provides some context so that it's not just that staff member I just talked to who says, yeah, everything's great, or that one that says, oh my gosh, so that we have some, you know, kind of a range of opinions. One of the things I wanted to mention is that there will be some questions on there that talk specifically about, you know, principals, administrators, and I want to be clear both to them and to you that anything that is gathered will be part of their evaluation process that I facilitate as their evaluator, and that we will be cautious about sharing those things publicly if they can clearly be attributed to one person. And that's really in any indicator, because that's just not fair to them and the work that they do to do that, but it will influence certainly my work with them and their own goal setting as well. So that's kind of, I just want to provide an update and welcome your questions that you may have on those things.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
If you could replicate what you just shared with us
Yes.
out to staff,
Okay.
I think that would solve a lot of unknowns.
Okay.
Perceived issues with this.
So maybe like a video or something, just
video
instead
or
of the words. Or,
Attend a staff meeting, you know. But I think, you know, one person
Oh.
conveying that message is consistent K-12.
I agree with that.
yeah. So when we roll out the survey, I could maybe go around to different
Yeah.
buildings. And I like that idea.
Aaron, during the strategic plan, this shows you how short my memory is. What was it called, the four things? It was strengths, weaknesses, it was. what was it?
Opportunities.
Opportunities. It is SWOT. Is it SWOT?
Yeah, and threats.
Threats.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting, talking to a couple of my colleagues who I was working with. I thought it was really interesting. There's a way you can look at, you know, when you say you've got these things and we're doing well, and your comment was really good, like, well, we don't have to worry about that. But sometimes you can say, why are we doing well? And let's keep on,
Yeah.
can we replicate
Build
that?
on it, yeah.
And I thought, you know, that's something that, I mean, I hope we will look at. I mean, obviously, we're going to have threats or we're going to have weaknesses, but that's natural. And then how do we work on that? Do we work on the things we're doing well, or do we work more on the things we're not doing well? You know, it's probably a balance. So, anyway.
Thank you.
As far as trying to secure a greater percentage of return surveys by parents, for example, I think, you know, we're in this mindset, you know, we send it out to them, and then they complete it at home and send it back in. Any thought of having some computers set up like during parent-teacher conferences?
Yes.
You know, where they are at school, and maybe even during a sporting event. You know, I don't know. But have some computers available. We would need some, probably lead person or something, just to be there, just in case they need some help. But that might generate a greater response rate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they're already there, make it easy to do. That's a great idea. We've done that for different things in the past, off and on.
A good place would be in the pool for swim meets, since
Yeah,
there's a lot of downtime.
That's so true.
Yeah, I sporting events, I'm kind of going like, I don't know about that, but I think in parent-teachers conferences, there are lines. At least, I don't know, they've probably redone the format so much, but there are times where there's nothing to do, and I think it would be a good time. Of course, you may have people complaining at that point.
But maybe
That
have them
one
set up in the office, in the offices or the libraries.
Yeah,
So as, parents come through, who's ever in that area can just ask them.
you could even have an
Survey
announcement,
yet.
just say, if you get a chance, please stop by. Yeah, that's a great idea, Tom.
Is it one survey, this is a dumb question, but is it per child, is it per school, is it
It would be per
School, I would
per
think.
school.
per school? So if you have 3 or 4 kids in 3 or 4 different schools, I'm probably not gonna fill that survey out 4 times.
You're right.
So I would just think about that as far as maybe if there's a way to be able to answer based on the schools.
Yeah, let me check on that.
You know, because a lot of those questions are gonna be the same, but then there's also going to be questions that apply specifically to the school.
That's an interesting thought,
Yeah.
Kate,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't do it 3 or 4 times if I.
But if you fill it out, and then we could ask that question, and we
At
have
the
only
end,
10 more questions,
yeah.
but they're more relevant, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, thank you.
Anything else?
We're full of ideas
I
tonight.
know you will.
This is
Yeah, you guys
awesome.
are on fire.
Mr. Mooney, the floor is yours.
Thanks, okay. I'll do the WEVA report
Okay.
second. But a lot of things going on in the district. I thought I would just share some of the things that I've been able to participate in. SEPs had their open house on
Yeah.
Saturday,
Were you and your wife watching the?
Yes, we were watching the video, yeah.
Because I came in and walked around and they were showing the video and I thought
Oh,
that
yeah,
was you.
yeah.
And
Again, thanks to Jenny and Heidi and Greg for really coordinating all of it, and then being there on a Saturday to open the building and to, close up the building. Yeah, so that was really nice to see them there. Chris Attridge, one
I
of
was
our,
just gonna say, I think like 30 to 40 people is what I heard.
probably.
That sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think.
And that wouldn't be so atypical, because when I would open up the building on Saturdays, just periodically, we'd have anywhere from maybe 2 people to maybe 20 people.
Okay.
But it's nice to offer the community the opportunity to see and explore our spaces here in the building, here in the district, especially if we think we're gonna go referendum again. Chris Attridge, one of our retired art teachers, was there, and she was one of the 3 art teachers that developed the mural. Has everyone seen it? If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go to the building and see it.
Yep.
Because there's pictures on Facebook, but it really doesn't do it justice.
No, it's beautiful.
What I found interesting was that on that mural is a plaque acknowledging the Ho-Chunk Nation and the contributions that they've made to our community here. And I was thinking, a lot of times now at the university, before they have events, they'll acknowledge the Ho-Chunk Nation. Maybe that's something that we might want to consider doing, at board meetings once in a while. Just to keep that out in front of us all the time. It was nice to see parents of some of my former students who attend open house now as grandparents. Because we really have to rely on them for our continued support.
Yes.
Of course, the treats and refreshments are good also. The Reality Zone, again,
Yes.
thanks to Penny Thompson and Ginger for coordinating all that. You were there, of course. It was nice that we were able to pull it off, and because of their efforts, the Reality Zone became a real reality for the kids.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to see former students, but it's nicer to see them engage in that finance piece, that budgeting piece. It was great to see so many community members. Once
It's such a
again,
great event.
once
So
again,
many.
it's great to have the community in the building and to give them something functional to actually do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
what is
think-
it, like 40, 50 volunteers? something
Yeah,
like
40
that?
or 50,
It's a lot.
they said.
I think my daughter attended it as a high school student, and she had a booth in this last one.
That's cool.
Mystery readers, I know some of us were down at the SEPS building doing the mystery reader, served as mystery readers.
Yeah, well,
I don't-
Lisa was today.
Oh,
Lisa was-
today?
Today was.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's been any consideration, but to get more of the community involved, possibly sometime in the future when they have it again, do outreach to members of the Chamber of Commerce. I think
That's a good
is
idea.
Stu our liaison to the chamber? Stu Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think there'd be a lot of interest by our chamber partners to do that. And again, if it's a time issue, you know, if they need someone to help with that, I'd be glad to help in the future. I was able to go through all the campuses, but this time, happy Thanksgiving to all the staff here. I mean, we truly have a lot of things to be thankful in our district. So I appreciate it. And, you know, teaching is complex, complicated responsibility, and they do a nice job, you know? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Alice, no, not Alice in Wonderland.
Cinderella.
Cinderella, yeah.
Yeah, the other fairy tale.
We also saw Willy Wonka at the Chocolate Factory this
Oh,
past
boy.
weekend. But again, the students did a great job. And behind the scenes, you know, the lighting, the sound, the orchestra, yeah, again, it's a real team approach to make that a successful event. Oh, and in closing, sometimes I have a lot to share, and I don't want to take up a lot of our board time, but if there's another way that I can share some of that, then I'd be open for that also.
Yeah, I'd be happy to include something in the minutes if that
Mhm.
would work too.
Yep. And that's that part. Can I go into WEVA?
Got a Weeble report?
Okay, WEVA.
Are you
Do
freaked
it.
out by the door?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm really freaked out. The door behind you keeps
I know.
opening and
It
closing.
opened and it closed. I mean, I was,
I want to see
Kate
if
and I were
we're
having a moment.
getting to the finish.
Watch out if you feel
No
a cold
ghost.
draft.
We'll let you know if the ghost comes, Mr. Mooney, but yes, we are.
Again, we have board meetings once a month. And the reason why I think it's important to share things about WEVA is that McFarland is the host district for them. There's a lot of parallel things going on. We have access to some of their curriculum. But just as important, that budget piece, yeah, as a district, we get some significant funding as hosts to that. So I think it's good for us to be aware of some of it, because I think sometimes community members will ask us, you know, what's this WEVA thing all about? And if we have a little information to share with them, I think it's good for us. They have a nice problem. They have to try to spend down their surplus. That's a really nice problem. They get new students that generate more income, which leads to more expenses. And presently, they're getting about 50 new students a week.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
that's a lot of students.
And
Are
that's
they
from
able to
all the
hire
schools.
commensurate?
From throughout the state.
Yep, and from
Yeah.
all the.
Are they able to keep staff?
Actually, they've been able to
Because it's
increase
all
staff.
done online.
Yeah,
I would think it would be
it's a lot.
different.
They approved their 5-year charter contract that we approved
Yes.
a few weeks ago with K-8, high school, CDA, and Insight. And there are 3 heads of WEVA contracts. It's the McFarland School District, the Four Lakes Board, okay, and then Stride, which is sort of the overarching corporation that governs them. The enrollment update, a year ago was 3335. Now, it's 3490, an increase of about 349 students. And it continues to grow. 20% of their student population are students with special needs. That compares to about 15% for school districts. What's unique about WEVA is that they accept expelled students, and their enrollment remains, I think, throughout the whole year, which is very atypical. So that's why their test scores might be a little more depressed, you know, because their student population is more broad.
Yep.
There are 70 virtual schools in Wisconsin, with many, if not most, are right in the school district programs. Right in, the conversion rate, as far as the number who inquire about virtual learning, those who apply for admission, and those that actually enroll is very high. So when parents inquire, they like what they see, and then they apply. This is a staff report. Special programs, 60, K-5, 27, which doesn't seem like much. But again, virtual, you can handle larger class sizes. Middle school, 25, high school, 60, Insight, 7, DCA, 14. There's a total staff of 204 students, 204 staff. And that includes clerical, administrative staff also.
And we still provide some administrative assistance to them, don't we, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially enrollment and then with the students with disabilities,
Yep.
that's the biggest area, I think.
They talked about the strategic plan update, and academically, they fell short at their K-8 in high school using the growth model, and that's what we use also as the growth model. But again, they explain some of the unique patterns, features of WEVA versus some of the other virtual schools. They have staff listening sessions. No surprise, staff morale has been impacted by additional responsibilities expected of teachers. You know, same here, you know. Increasing class size is the biggest issue right now. As I mentioned a couple months ago, they have a monthly celebration, and this month they highlighted super high-risk students. And they talked about creating a caring room with the visual relaxation techniques that is very successful for kids to get them more self-centered. Jason Solo from the Humanize My Hoodie project in 10 cities, making sacred trouble. You know, so that's a different way of presenting that. They had Spirit Week, and they have many independent classes. And online, you can do that more so. And that's all I have for WEVA.
Anybody got any questions? Okay, moving on then, an update on the strategic planning process. Mr. Turnitzer.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, you've received some information from this in the McFarland minutes, but just wanted to highlight a little bit for you that we had our second phase of the strategic planning session, second and final phase of strategic planning. People came back, and that was great. We actually were planning to be there for Friday and Saturday morning, but overachievers, we got it done on Friday. And so we'll be bringing this forward to you probably at our next board meeting. But I want to honor the board's request to have members of the committee present it instead of just me. I do not take offense to that. But part of that is trying to make sure that they're ready, and you know, they're probably not used to presenting to the school board as others are. So want to make sure we have that. And what they'll be sharing, so you had approved the mission and vision. Some updates on that is they've added commitments, which were shared with you, just so you could see them, as well as the pillars and strategic objectives. And then just a reminder from that, what ends up happening is we look at what indicators, how are we going to measure growth in those areas related to the objectives and get into action planning. And Joe Schrader did a fabulous job by all accounts, and he will also be working with the administrative team to get into sort of what are some next year steps that you want to do based on these objectives that were identified. So really grateful for the people that were able to make that commitment.
Attendance was great, huh?
Yes, it was. There are a few people that had some things come up, which is totally understandable. And we want to respect their time, but you know, really appreciate everyone involved.
That's
Appreciate
fantastic.
Angie's coordination of childcare and food and location and technology and
Coffee.
whew,
Great job, Angie. Thank
a
you.
lot of stuff.
That's a big deal.
I'm very well excited to share that with you more formally in an upcoming meeting.
Perfect.
Aaron, will those be non-school reps presenting?
Yeah, what I was thinking was, and this is what I remember, so correct me if I'm wrong, was you wanted a representation of different roles. You know, so maybe there will be a school person or something, but also, you know, parents. We only ended up having one student that came the entire time, but
She was
you know,
phenomenal.
I think I could maybe talk her into coming. But yes, I think you're right, Tom, that you get to hear from us a lot. It'd be nice to hear some community members too.
Any consideration of bringing that same committee back in 1 or 2 years to give them a status report?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
As
I hadn't
valuing
thought of
their
that.
time
Mhm.
so they can see what type of advancement we as a district have made based on the work that they accomplished.
Good idea.
And we have to make sure we give credit where credit is due as well. And
Yes.
we want to make sure we advertise that this is community input, parental input, student, staff, the whole 9 yards. I think that'd be excellent.
Yeah, yeah. Report out.
And I just have to admit, since I was an observer, I couldn't say anything. I felt I was an untapped resource. You know, so I had to bite my tongue, but that's okay. I understood that going in.
Potential for conflict of interest.
That's right.
You do, after all, vote to approve the final result.
Yes.
Sort of, sort of.
And I certainly can tell you, I empathize with you. Because I did a lot of biting of my tongue as well.
I'm sure.
I'm
No,
sure you did.
I'm sure.
A lot. But it was good. It was
Yeah.
really good. And part of it, I think, one of the things I walked away from, and you'll hear this in the presentation, was trusting the process. Because by the end, the way it all played out, it all made sense. But there were parts where I thought, oh, I don't know how we're gonna get here. You know, and so that's why you bring in an expert
That's
facility.
a great facilitator will
Yeah,
make those things happen.
and I would second that.
Yeah.
And I hope I didn't, you know, they talk about the conflict of interest. I tried to,
You were-
but there were times I couldn't restrain myself.
Yeah, it was fine. You did great.
Okay.
Are we moving on?
I'm ready when you are.
All right. The school safety written drill evaluation notification and review per Wisconsin State Statute 118.074 CP.
That sounds so official.
Official.
Sure
But it
does.
is, I mean, there's a law and stuff, but part of it is just making sure the board is aware that we do have some drills. And in this case, one was more of a drill and the other two were, you know, sort of some events. So there were 3 things that you'll see in your packet. 2 were at the middle school, 1 was at the high school. One at the middle school, 1 at the high school is related to what is a common occurrence for an administrative hold is, and I take time to explain this to you, just so you kind of understand, I think it's good for you to know, is an administrative hold is often done for student privacy. So students having whatever, there's, you know, an outburst or something, and you really don't want other kids to see a student who's upset or in crisis. That's a typical thing, or a medical emergency. No one wants to see a, you know, kid in a medical emergency. It's very scary. And no one wants someone to see them, you know, in that state, as you can imagine. So that's part of the reason why we do those things. The other thing, the other one that was done at the middle school was an administrative hold for a canine search. So it's been several years since we've actually had a canine search in the district. We used to do them routinely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we bring a dog in and take them through. They don't search, they're searching in this case for drugs. They don't come because we have any particular reason. It's a scheduled significantly in advance, and it's a very proactive thing. They don't search students directly, their backpacks. And that has been found both to be scary for students, but also to be considered a violation of their rights by searching them without just cause, their body. But the lockers are school property. And so the dog goes through and searches, and then if we have any possible hits, we search the lockers with multiple people there. In this case, we didn't find anything. With one exception, which was the item that the officers planted for the dog, because they need to give the dog a little something for all their hard work. So they will pick a spot and they will plant something there just to give the dog a little reward. It was very exciting. The police officer with the dog was very reinforcing. It was very cute when he found the items. But that's something that we do, and then communications sent to families.
Was this a county sheriff or local?
No, our
police?
local.
Okay.
Yeah, McFarland Police Department, yeah, they're trained dog. We used to have like teams come in from the sheriffs, yeah, and now since they have their own canine here in McFarland, so.
So how often do they do that here at the high school, Aaron?
Well, like I said, we haven't had it for a long time. The middle school just happened. Maybe at some point, maybe they'll be coming to the high school, maybe at a date that I'm aware of.
But
Maybe
most
not.
kids don't have lockers anymore at the high
Yes,
school.
yes.
That's true.
So not everyone has a locker.
Very
I would
true.
say the majority don't, right?
Yep, they do search other areas. But I think, historically, when we were doing them more regularly, it was once a year.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I anticipate, but I don't know. I mean, particularly, if they found something, I could see that maybe making us feel like maybe we should do it more often. So, yeah.
And do they search not search, but do they have the dogs go out in the parking lot also?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yes, I know, because, it's not that I want to catch people, but, certainly, I'd actually rather have them not have them there. So if, let's
Yeah.
keep that in mind, that the parking lot is searched, yes. Indeed. It's a more likely place to find something, per past experience.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Recognitions.
Well, this is getting easier and easier for me because you have Joey and then you have Mr. Mooney here sharing wonderful things. I know you've seen this stuff and I've probably been saying it over and over, but I don't think we have met as a board since Veterans Day. So just really proud of the district and the way that they've really connected with the community and honored our local veterans through different assemblies and the breakfast that was held here at the high school, so.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's really a change. I mean, maybe it used to be that way, but it certainly stopped if it was. And so that's something I just think good. Staff development, really some powerful things. I'm really proud of our professional development model this year. By focusing, we actually have it mapped out in advance, so it's thoughtful, it's sequential, and you've heard about those in our school improvement presentation. Obviously, we talked about Cinderella. I was just blown away. I mean, I went home and I was telling my family about it, and I love middle school musicals. However, I will say, it's a whole different deal here at the high school. And it's fun for me to see, because I often don't get to go to the high school musical, it's fun for me to see those same students, right?
Sure.
Progress, but wow, just everybody involved in that production, the set, anyway, very impressive. Last week was National Apprenticeship Week, and I don't believe I acknowledged that in advance, but we are so fortunate to have one of the best, if not the best, youth apprenticeship program around. And what a difference it makes. I can speak for that as a parent, but also for the things that I've seen in the community. So grateful for Penny Thompson, among others, involved in that work. Reality Zone, we've covered that. That was great. Calendar Committee met. Really strong group. I think we had 15 people, I feel like. And looked at I had put together, so we had sent out a survey to the staff asking for their feedback on the calendar, and I had put together a draft calendar based on their feedback, and then we came to some agreements on a few things. There's still a few questions out there, so we're gonna meet again. I'm gonna send something out to staff sharing an update about, where we're at. I'm learning to love the calendar. We're not there yet. That's something I haven't been involved with before, but feel like it's an important part of my job.
Yes.
Because it really impacts so much of
Yes.
people's experience. And interestingly, not every staff member has the same opinion about the calendar. So some of its life circumstances impacts that. We've had one meeting with our professional staff employees relations committee and our support staff employees relations committee. So both have met once, really productive, collaborative meetings. Really pleased with that. In fact, at the SZIRC, which is support staff, we talked quite a bit about the calendar. And there are support staff members representing support staff on the calendar committee, which I don't think has been.
I don't think it's been in the past.
I was gonna say.
That's great to hear.
It is
Yeah.
good to have.
Yeah. So that's exciting. We had an author visit last week, visited English 10. Paul Voponi, and he's from New York. And he presented, did a lesson about writing and had kids writing in class. Really powerful thing, I was able to chat with him a little bit. He actually taught students that were incarcerated, taught at Rikers, actually.
Wow.
So, and also is also an author, so really neat thing. So thank you, Aaron Fisher, for setting that up. Talked about CEPS open house and the vaccination clinic. I think you may have seen, I'm not sure if everybody knows, 664 roughly, a very specific number of vaccinations. So
That's
really
fantastic.
proud of that.
Wow.
Yeah, what a great thing to have provided for our students, so both flu and COVID.
That was gonna be my question. if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
You also.
Yeah, so there weren't 664 people, but that's
Yeah.
how many vaccinations there were. There were almost 400, I think, over 300. So those are my recognitions.
Aaron, with the youth apprenticeship program, is McFarland still the highest proportionally that has
know.
students in youth apprenticeship programs?
I'd be surprised if we aren't.
Yeah,
I
I would
would be
agree with you,
too.
Craig. I'd be
I
surprised
can
we're not.
check
I know a
on
few
that.
years ago we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always been my understanding too.
Yeah.
I can ask, something to really celebrate.
That is something to celebrate.
Yeah, real
That
difference
program.
maker.
Kids
That
love
program
it.
was down as well.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I mean, it was almost like DECA.
Mhm.
You know, the cavalry came and
Yeah,
got some new leadership on board, and those two, they're just booming, just booming. Real sources of pride.
definitely.
Yep.
Upcoming events, obviously, we don't have school Wednesday through Friday. This is our second year of not having school on that Wednesday. When staff were surveyed on the calendar committee, that Wednesday is a high priority for them to have off. So that's a way that we're listening to staff and looking out for them.
We took a
Was that
certain
the-
amount of heat on that last year because
We did.
it came at the last second, but I think we could explain to parents who, they were very understanding considering the circumstances, but I think it really did help staff and morale.
It
was
did.
wonderful.
We did make a withdrawal from
Yeah.
our community for
Yeah,
that.
it was tough.
Was
This
that-
year, they knew it was coming.
Yep.
Was that the metric that it was like 98% of teachers agreed on that wanting that day?
No.
No.
That statistic I think you're thinking about is 96% of staff said they wanted to have some form of a traditional calendar as
Oh,
opposed to
yes.
going
Okay.
significantly into the summer.
Got it. It was a heat- it
But
was-
this is, I'd have to look at the numbers, but
Oh, I'm sure it was.
in the staff feedback, the majority of people had this as their first or second choice as a day off.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I gave them some options for different days off.
Cool.
Yeah. December is Human Rights Month and Learning a Foreign Language Month, so I encourage you to do so. December 2nd is Special Education Day. And so that is a day to commemorate the signing of the IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So that was signed into law in 1975. Wow. I was a spry 2-year-old. December 3rd is the International Day of People with Disabilities. So beyond education, and that's actually a day of observance through the United Nations, meant to promote an understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities. So another important day. December 4th is International Volunteer Day, and we're so grateful we're having more and more volunteers coming back in now that we, are less COVID-y. That's a technical term. Computer Science Education Week is December 5th. And upcoming board meetings, so we have the board meeting on December 5th. Hopefully we'll have the strategic plan presented then. Possible action on the calendar. I know it's a bit behind, but I don't want to rush the process because I could do that. I could just make all the decisions, but that's not how we want to do things here. We'll also have action on the second reading of some policies. And the pupil non-discrimination summary report will be presented, and I believe a school safety review as well. And December 8th, we have a special session for learning about the superintendent evaluation model. So that's important and long overdue. December 19th is also another board meeting with a significant business managers report, some budget things and enrollment and some things. Yeah, so that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much.
Craig, could I just mention,
Yes, you can.
because we've talked about community engagement, and we've heard about some different things. It'd be interesting just to see a sort of like a list of things that we do
Yeah.
have community involved with, because I think
Yes.
it's quite a bit. And I think, and no one has to do with this, but it'd be interesting to see how many opportunities we provide to parents and the community to come into the schools for different things.
And I might add how many we're adding. I think it's growing significantly, and I'm pleased with that.
I like that idea.
It's definitely a strength of the district.
Yes,
Okay.
it's important because we always look at what we're not doing
Yeah.
instead of celebrating what we are.
The SWAT.
Moving on, action on first reading of policies. I will go ahead and read them. 0100 definitions, 0161 parliamentary authority, 1213 student supervision and welfare, 1421 criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirements, 2700.01 school performance and state accountability report cards, 3121 criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirement, 3213 student supervision and welfare, 4121 criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirement, 4213 student supervision and welfare, 5340 student accidents, illnesses, concussions, and sudden cardiac arrest, 8146 notification of educational options. Administration recommends approval of first reading of the attached policies. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Kate, any discussion?
Yes.
Let her rip.
please. Under the title voting,
Voting?
that's a title, it's
in
PO
definitions,
1.31, yeah, under the definitions.
Oh, okay.
I've always been under the impression that when it came to closed sessions, such as personnel, expulsions, hiring, or firing, that we couldn't do it remotely. We couldn't vote remotely. But now, this policy, it's probably been there, it says that we can do remote voting, but we have to run across the legal counsel first.
So you're just wanting to highlight
What,
that.
what are the parameters of that? I mean, how would we know which
I can check
instances
on
could we allow remote voting versus those that cannot?
So what you're looking for, it's not so much a question on the policy, just
Nope.
more of a clarification on
A
implementation.
Clarification and a couple examples.
What would legal counsel say are times where you could or couldn't?
And I'll use those two, expulsions being one, and non-renewals would be another one. Because I wonder what their parameters are. For saying, yes, we could do remote
Remote
voting
voting.
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, I can definitely check on
Because
that.
prior to this, I don't think we've ever done it. But now with technology changing, we have that as an option.
Maybe Dr. Brown can help us on that.
Yeah, or I might even just reach out to Shayna Lewis directly.
Absolutely.
And then under, I think it's definition still, report cards. Do we still have Title I in the district, Aaron?
No, not,
We don't-
WEVA, we do at WEVA,
But we don't have Title I funds coming into the district.
correct, at least
Okay.
the last I knew.
Because
I
we
know
don't-
it does change from year to year.
Yeah, because we probably didn't qualify.
Yep.
Okay. Under student supervision and welfare, 3213,
Okay.
talks about staff are discouraged from engaging with students on social media, et cetera. Does this include Snapshot? And is there any time that Snapshot would be appropriate to use?
Are you,
mean
I think you're.
Snapchat, yes, thank you.
That was a good TV commercial you just did there.
I'm not
We're
on it, so
not
I don't
being
know what it
paid
is.
again.
I'm not either.
One of the things, where the only place where I see something like Snapchat being used is
Yeah.
sometimes for sports teams. And sports teams sometimes have different, well, and maybe even all clubs, I guess I can't really speak to that. That's the one I'm most familiar with.
They usually have a different sports engine
Yeah. they're
because of like
moving
all
to
the
that.
club stuff is regulated now.
Yes.
A lot more with coaches speaking to minors.
Is it
Yeah.
considered
Right.
Snapshot? Isn't it not?
Snapchat.
Snapchat,
Snapchat?
no, it's separate.
It's something different.
Separate
Okay.
platforms. I
Yeah.
don't know about the high school though and how the coaches talk with.
Yeah.
Have
You know, like in the high
something
We've
school.
been
called-
moving away from that. I know for a while, there were, my understanding of it, probably Paul Ackley is just going crazy right now. Is there were a few people doing a few different things and now they're trying to make it, much more consistent.
Okay.
So that,
Yeah.
talking with the hands, so that there is that, you just don't want to have any conflicts of interest
Right.
or put anybody in an awkward position by using personal devices. So
I don't
no
have
one's
any-
using Snapchat.
Okay, I don't have any revision for that. I was just
No,
curious.
good, made you think of it.
And the last one, policy 5340, student accidents, illness, concussion, and
Yes.
student cardiac arrest. They talk about, we have the protocol on that for students age 12 and older. Concussions can occur for younger students. Is that a whole different protocol?
I think this follows what's required by statute.
I think this was for the sudden cardiac arrest.
And I think it's
Specifically for that.
it's for like sports associated, athletics associated
Yeah.
with the school district. So the younger
Okay.
kids are not,
That's right.
They don't
they're
have
playing sports, but they're not playing sports through the district.
Right.
For the school.
Well,
I
I
agree.
was thinking of the club sports.
Yeah,
Where
but
they
that's-
use the school
But then
grounds.
that's different, because then they do, yeah.
Right.
They're under there.
I mean, I think
care.
whether it's been through MRAP or when they get to IMS and it's, there's not many kids under 12 there, but I know in all of the years, my kids have always gotten the same information about. and
Regardless of
ev-
age?
Yeah, and even at MRAP, that was part of their policies that you
Okay.
had to approve when you were signing up for a class or something. So it feels like in practice, most kids are getting the same protocol.
But do they have to be 12 and higher, older?
No,
than-
I mean, like MRAP usually covers the sports that are less than 12.
Right.
So the rec
Okay.
department. And then, yeah, I mean, we got it at all levels at IMS.
I just want to make sure that we're consistent, because if we aren't consistent, we can get caught.
Yeah, but I think
So-
to Kate's point, I don't know that there's a lot of school-sponsored
No.
sports
Yeah.
under,
Because that's when you start needing sports physical forms,
yes.
too.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. And there's no revision to make there. I was
Yeah.
just
Good
curious. again.
questions.
Good question.
Anything else? Anyone?
I just,
Bruce?
I don't want to take too long with this, but when I was reading this, I kind of felt like I was in Groundhog's Day, because there's so much repetition.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of redundancy.
And it was just so much redundancy. Is that the way it's planned? I mean, it's
Yes.
just, holy cow.
So if you look on the document that's like the overview and comments, they're actually kind of grouped differently.
Yeah.
And I probably should have done that because there's different levels, like some are for different levels of staff. So some are for support staff and some are for professional staff and some are for visitors.
Okay.
So if you look at them, they actually, fall into different sections, but the language is consistent, which is a good thing.
Which is, you have to be, yeah.
Yep, so that's what happened, and I could have grouped them, I think, in your packet a little bit different.
Okay.
I did it sequentially, so that when someone said a
Yeah.
number, you could flip to that and
Yeah.
know.
Okay, that makes
But they're
total
grouped
sense.
differently on here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, the criminal history is the same way, and the
Yeah.
student supervision and welfare.
I actually have some good news with that. Dr. Brown from Neola had made an announcement that they are
Looking toward potentially looking at creating just overall groups versus having them broken down by professional staff, support staff. So if they apply to more than one group, I think they're looking at combining.
Yeah, it would seem
Those.
to me that would be a natural way to do it, but.
Yeah, my
Okay.
assumption is that's not in the immediate future,
tomorrow.
No,
but
that's fine.
that's their general goal.
It makes sense that they'd work toward that.
It should be
It's a lot
easily,
leaner process.
it should be easily done,
Yeah.
I
because
would
everything's
think.
there. Darren, I just want to share my appreciation for you clustering these in smaller groups, because it allowed
I
gives
agree.
me more time to take a
Yeah.
closer look at these.
I appreciate that, and it gives me a chance to warn you. The next ones are gonna get a little more challenging. So I picked the ones to start with so that Megan and I could get our feet wet a little bit with this process, being this is our first time reviewing policies in this capacity anyway. But the next ones will have some choices, that the district can make. And so there's several policies that for the next group, or if we end up needing a third group, that I had to run through different people. So Melissa, Jeff, would then work with their staff just to make sure, does this make sense, based on Lauren as well,
I
so.
was gonna say.
So they'll get a little bit more complicated.
But we won't have like 30 policies to review
No,
in one night.
and this was, and Angie's can verify this was one of the smaller updates ever,
Oh, yeah.
so,
Last year.
Oh, yeah.
I
already,
believe it.
Yeah.
so, yep. So there's some more coming. And you saw this, the overview and comments, it has all the policies
Yes.
that are part of the update, and you could see which ones, I starred the ones that we were gonna talk about tonight. So
Okay.
there's more coming.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I've got a motion from Tom and a second from Kate. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Action on recommended WEVA, Destinations Career Academy and Insight School of Wisconsin, Statute 118.408G, student transfers to resident districts. At this time, WEVA, Destinations Career Academy, and Insight School of Wisconsin are requesting approval of recommended student transfers back to their resident districts due to lack of engagement. Do I have a motion?
I will.
Bruce, second.
I'll second.
Kate, discussion. Any?
Yes. Notice on that list, we have 2 first-grade students going back to their home districts. And I understand why WEVA does it, because they've become disengaged, or more so maybe their parents have. But on the positive side, this is about the shortest list I've ever seen. So I think, speaking with Sarah Cutter and being on the board, they're making a heavy conscientious effort to interject additional support systems for these higher at-risk kids. And I hope this is a trend that we'll see in the future also, where we actually will have to approve just fewer students than what we've done in the past.
I think the presentation that they gave earlier, a couple board meetings ago, also demonstrated that.
Yeah, so I think they're committed to that.
I think so. I had a real positive, I thought, view after she made her presentation.
And
You can
she's,
tell there's passion.
yeah, and she said the same thing last June.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Kate,
I'll second that.
Bruce, all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 8:40. Thank you, one and all.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
We moved along pretty good tonight.